Mesdames et messieurs, the greatest festival of our contemporary society, the Olympic Games, is about to begin.
This is going to be close.
Oh! They're all completely gassed! They've given it everything on the global bucket! Oh, yeah! Go! Oh!
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. But that is an Olympic championship.
Ready.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Keep the Flame Alive, the podcast for fans of the Olympics and Paralympics. If you love the games, we are the show for you. Each week we share stories from athletes and people behind the scenes to help you have more fun watching the games. I am your host, Jill Jarris, joined as always by my lovely co-host, Allison Brown. Allison, hello, how are you?
I am very, very disappointed in Paris 2024.
How so?
Because they held Disco Frige until the closing ceremonies, and now they are posting Disco Frige all over their social media. And
like it's something, like it was something.
Like it was something. And because we couldn't get to the closing ceremony, we never got to see Disco Frige in person. And I'm crushed.
No, and they had special friges, limited edition friges that were also disco and fancy. We didn't get to those either. But I did see them at the factory when I went on that tour.
Though I'm glad I didn't see the frige wearing frige. That feels cannibalistic to me and slightly disruptive to my spiritual health. But if anybody gets their... I don't think they made a Disco Frige. But if they did, or if someone can make one for me, just get to that tinsel and sparkles and just keep sewing.
Oh, man. Still getting back into it.
Oh, yeah. I forgot to do the newsletter this week, so I apologize to everyone. I'll get out one sometime.
My office is still a mess, full of stuff. I'm still finding pins in random places.
I have a pile that I have to sort through.
Oh boy. But speaking of pins, we will be at Olympian in November. If you are a pin fan, it is in Atlanta. If you plan on going, let us know. We'll have more information on that coming up in future episodes, so be on the lookout for that. Today, we are talking with Elvin Kibet, who is one of the stars of Joanna Garten's book, All in Stride, A Journey in Running, Courage, and the Search for the American Dream. She was born in Kenya and came to the U.S. on a running scholarship at the University of Arizona. Post-college, she became a professional runner and joined the U.S. Army's World-Class Athlete Program. In the book, she shares her story as a runner, an immigrant, a soldier, and an Olympic hopeful. And we talked with her last spring when the book came out about her experiences and then also what it was like to be part of this book. It was really fun to talk with her. I'd forgotten how fun this was. So take a listen to our interview with Elvin. Elvin, thank you so much for joining us. All in Stride. What made you want to be a part of this project?
When Joanna first started interviewing Shadrack, and she was coming to the house so often, and I just wanted to share my story with everybody, about resilience and perseverance, and also, chasing the American dream. It's full of ups and downs, but it's so beautiful. It's a very beautiful journey that a lot of immigrants, they have the similar stories as us, and I wanted just to share that out there.
When you were growing up in Kenya, yes, you had sisters who went to the Olympics, but they're kind of older than you. What sort of awareness did you have of running, and how important was that in your family?
Yes, running was very important in my family. And at a very young age, I watched my sisters. They were running all the time, and they were traveling, and we used to look up to them, my twin sister and I remember us saying, one day that will be us, one day, because they will be going to other countries, and they would tell us stories about, they were in an airplane, and to us it was like, wow, just running did that for you. And it was a means to see the world for them, and also for us. We just looked up to them, and we wanted to be like them.
What does running mean to Kenya?
I think running to Kenya means, first, it's a means to escape poverty. It's a means to make ends meet. And then the other thing, a lot of people are passionate about running because where I was born, everybody runs. Everybody, runs everywhere. So it comes so natural to us it doesn't even look like it's a job or a hard thing to do. It just comes so natural. You do it from a very young age, and then when you get a little bit older, they said, oh, you can actually go to another country, visit another country, and go to school, get a scholarship, and get all these just because you can run. And that everybody will take that. They'll be like, you know what? That's all you need from me. Then I'll run. Yeah.
You didn't start running competitively till high school, but like when you were a kid and had to run to school, how far did you go?
So
How far away was school?
I think it was about 5K going to school. So we'll go in the morning and then come back for lunch, go back in the afternoon and come back in the evening. And I never really did the math like that when I was younger. I was like, yeah, everybody did that. So it looked so normal. But I look back now, I'm like, that was a lot of running.
So when your adorable little baby grows up and complains about having to like go outside in the cold, will you say like, I ran to school this long and back uphill both ways,
Right?
and be true?
I'll be like, do not complain, okay? Your school is like less than a mile, okay? So you better be walking.
Though to be fair, you never dealt with Colorado winters.
That's true. That's true.
So
That's true. But out there also it was tough because you don't have shoes and it's very cold in the morning. And I remember when I was in kindergarten and my twin sister and I would go from, like anthill to an anthill, like spend a little time, and because the sun is coming out and your feet are like towing because it's been like so crusty, and in the morning it's very chilly. And we just stand there and we're like, oh my God. Yeah, so I think you will have shoes. If you have shoes, you can walk on the snow. We might decide to take the shoes off for a little bit. Just kidding. Just kidding.
So when you did decide to start running more competitively, what kind of drove that decision, and what made you love running as a sport?
Yeah, so in high school, I wasn't really interested so much in running because in Kenya also at that time, parents used to push. If they see you're a good student, they push you more towards school. And if you're not so good at school, they push you towards sports. And sports was running at that time, or soccer for the boys. And for me, when I finished high school, and I thought, I'm going to get to the best university in Kenya, because in Kenya, you get invited to join the university and they choose a major for you. So when they gave me, I think they gave me like tourism and something. I said, that doesn't sound like me. I wanted to do something healthcare, in that kind of field. And I didn't get that chance. So immediately I was like, what are my options? And my older sister, Hilda, at that time, she had already gone to the Olympics. She was traveling to the Netherlands, to the US, back and forth. And she told me, another option is for you to go to America. You could get yourself a scholarship. We already are talented, so you could start running, maybe start training a little bit seriously and get yourself a scholarship and go to the US. And to me, that was the very first time I heard of that idea. And I was like, wait, what did you say? Just run a little bit and I get a scholarship and then go do whatever I want to do out there? She was like, I am dead serious. Yes, you can. I said, oh, what are you still waiting for? Bring the shoes. That's how I started running. Yeah.
So you get to the United States and it's a little overwhelming. So talk about that first taste of culture shock.
It was just, I felt like I was just dropped in. Literally, I was dropped in another world. There was nothing close to Kenya. Everything from just landing at the airport, everything was confusing. And coming to school, there's so everybody has a car. The people warm their houses, and there's things that make your life easier, like a microwave and a computer and a stove. I'm used to cooking my meals, the traditional way, get the firewood from the forest and light a fire. And it was completely different for me. And it took a minute for me to adjust. And I wouldn't say it was easy. It was very tough. I am so grateful for my college teammates, especially Hannah and Momo. They took me under their wings and they were so patient with me because I had so many questions. And sometimes I was just, overwhelmed, and I just cry, and they were there for me. And I am so grateful because not everybody who is an immigrant gets that. And when you get that, it's very special. They did help me to adjust. And by the time I was 6 months in, I was getting a little bit better adjusting. And some of the things were fast to adjust, and some of the things took me time. I had to redo them over and over. And getting lost for me was a normal. Like, I used to get lost all the time. Did you know when I went to my first class, I didn't know that you get into an elevator. I knew Hugo, my brother-in-law, showed me an elevator when we were in Nairobi, Kenya, before I boarded my plane to come to the US. And he showed me, said, you go in, and then it takes you whatever you want to go. But when I came in here, I don't remember what class I had. It must have been psychology. And it was at room 300 and something. To me, I didn't know I was in first floor. I have to go up 3 floors. So I was looking for 300 and whatever room. I could not find it. And things like that, simple things like that, for you, it's so natural. You just get in the elevator, you go to 3rd floor, you find your room, right? But for me, I'm from the village. There was no elevators. There's not, let alone like a huge building like that. So I used to get lost all the time. I remember one time I actually found my coach's office. It was in like this huge building. It was called McKill Center at U of A. And I found him, and he was like, we were celebrating. We were hugging each other. He was like, yes, you found it. You found the office. And, things like that. And, I'm so grateful I had people like that to give me a lot of support and were patient and kind and willing.
Did the team ever do like camping events for bonding? And then when it was time to cook, you said, step aside. I have this.
Yes, we went to Flagstaff a couple times. And I really love that. You know why I love that? Because it was in the woods. And I know the woods.
Yeah, we do not learn those things in American high schools. But you were a pro.
I was a pro. I was like, you guys, I'm going to light a fire outside. You guys, I got this. Yeah, we were doing marshmallows and what is it called? Marshmallows and
s'mores.
Yes, and I was like, you know what? I don't know what it is, but it's fun. The fire is out. It's just conversation around the fire. I felt at home. I felt so like, wow, it is really good.
How did running, now being a sport and training, differ for you, and how much of a shock was that change to just running as part of your life versus a competitive sport?
Yeah, so for me, it changed because I had a schedule to follow. I had standards to meet. So they gave me like a full ride. And some of the kids didn't have full ride. So I was expected in a way to be at the top of the team, and really help the team. And in my first year, I kind of disappointed Coach Lee, because I started my first race in Flagstaff and I won the race. And then the second and the third, I wasn't close to winning the race or even leading the team. And for me, that put a lot more pressure on me. And my sister had told me, you just run a little bit. But that was not a little bit. It was full-time training. It took a toll on me in a way. And then adjusting also to the weather in Tucson. I remember the first day I went to training, I passed out because first I didn't know it was a desert. Nobody told me you're going to a desert. and drinking water for me was very difficult because I used to get like, now I know it's the brain freeze when the water was served so cold, and I would avoid it. I'd say I don't want to drink the water, but then I got dehydrated over the next couple of weeks, and it wasn't good adjusting to that kind of training. And then the girls were training really hard. I don't know if it was just my body trying to adjust to the training, or it was because I was training good in Kenya. I guess it was also like, not constantly being worried if I will find the place tomorrow, if I will wake up on time, all these things were really taking a toll on me that my physical body was not able to handle the training in the first couple of months. But then after some time, Hannah and Momo, they really took care of me in that way. And I started not to worry so much about the little things, and I focused more on running. And now, and then everything came together by the end of the year.
So talk about meeting Shadrack. Did you know him much in Kenya?
No, I did not know him at all. So it's like the story starts like all these parallel lives, He was just doing his thing. And it's so interesting that he went to school in my village, close to my village. And I used to pass by his school all the time. That's how close we were in Kenya, but we never met. And we were both not runners, nothing, until we came to the US, and then we met in Indiana. And I actually met him through his brother, because I knew his brother from Kenya. Because one time I had visited my sister in the city in Iten, and she was running at that time, and she was just doing her thing. And she had this guy in the house helping out with the baby and the little stuff here and there, cooking. And once in a while I'll see him read this huge book. Now I know it was SAT book, the SAT. And I didn't know what it was, and I used to be like, wow, you must love books. That's a big one. And he never really told me anything about it. And then one time, so when I was in Terre Haute, Indiana, I see him and I said, I remember you. You are in my sister. And you're like, yes, I remember you too. And that's how we started talking. And then Shadrack comes in and he's like, oh, by the way, this is my younger brother, Shadrack. I said, oh, okay. But I didn't really look at him. I was like, okay. And then later now we started talking. He requested me on Facebook, friendship on Facebook. And that's how our friendship started. We used to talk until 3 in the morning. Like we would talk. I don't even know we used to spend too much time. But at that time, probably I needed it, because we bonded so much over the stories of the village and about everything in Kenya. I feel like he got me. Like I get him, he gets me. And it was so natural. Our conversations were so natural. I didn't have to force anything. Because I used to wonder sometimes, how do you start talking to a boy? That's because I had never really talked to any boys at that time like that, seriously. But with him, it was so natural, and the conversation just went on and on and on for days. Sometimes we used to Skype, and then we met again in nationals. And I think that was where things got a little bit serious. But I never told Hannah and Momo, because they used to be like, oh, is that your boyfriend? I'm like, no, he's not. And we so defensive. It's not. We're just friends. But clearly, it was all over my face that I liked him. And I ended up getting married to him. And it was just really beautiful.
Were you ever competitive with one another? Do you feel that?
Yes, of course. Always. Especially, he's a lot faster than me for sure. But when we do things like when we're doing core, I know when his weakest points, doing core workouts and stretching, and then I will just go all out and make sure he knows that I am beating him that way. Yeah, but he's a really great runner. And I feel like we feed off each other's energy. I support him, he supports me. And until even today, we still run together, easy runs. And sometimes he would jump into my workouts and help me out. Like how we have the same workouts with the men, but since the women's times will be a little bit slower, they would finish their training before I do. Maybe I still have a couple more repeats, and he will jump in and help me out. And it's that, to me, that's just amazing. Can't get better than that.
So he was a part of the world-class athletic program.
Yes.
You became a part of it after him. So talk about how that whole process happened for you and for Shadrack, since it kind of went together.
Together, right? Yeah. So Shadrack, he got in 2014, and I was still in college. And when he told me about joining the army, joining WCAP was not in the picture because I didn't even know it existed. And I think he landed towards the end of his college when he was about to graduate. He learned about it and he started applying for it. But to me, he told me, I'm joining the army. That's what I'm going to do after school. I said, wait, what? I could not believe it. I said, no, I don't know if I can do it. I mean, I love you, support you, everything, but do you really want to join the army? And to me, I had my own reasons. My reason was, I grown up in a family where my dad was always absent. He was in the military and always gone for his missions and jobs, and it demanded so much. We'll see, I remember when I was little, I used to look forward. I would just sit in the porch, waiting for him to show up with his bike, at the top of the hill coming down, and sometimes he wouldn't show. And I didn't want, I started thinking, oh my God, this is the man I'm going to spend hopefully the rest of my life with. And he wants to join the army. He's going to leave me. That was my reasons. But to him, he was looking more at job security, following his passion and serving this country. There's so many other reasons he was looking into. But we eventually came to an agreement. I don't know how, but we did. And he did join the army and then joined WCAP later when he came out of the basic training. And I learned about this neat program. I said, wow, I didn't know it exists. I'm so happy that you can continue because he loves running. Shadrack loves running. I don't know if there is another human who loves running more than Shadrack. He loves running. I was so happy for him. I said, if you can combine both of these, be a soldier and run at the same time, that can get better than that. So that's amazing. And I saw him excel, in his running. He went to the Olympics. He went to all these world championships, cross country. He did really great. And at that time, for me, I was just supporting him. And then after some time, I said, in 2018, he wanted to get out. I said, get out! No, you have to stay in. The army has done so much for us. We don't have to worry about a thing. If it gives you an opportunity to continue running and following your passion, why not? And he said, I think I'll sign with Nike. And at that point, I understood. And I said, well, then I will join. And I've always wanted to do something so much bigger than just running. Maybe I could do the same as you did. You found so much purpose, so much motivation, so much through the Army and World Class Athletes program. I want to be a part of this neat program. And that's how I got in. And I was able to serve this country and at the same time follow my passion. Because I don't know if my running could have continued. Because it was hard to get a contract, to be honest. It was, I got a Skechers contract, but it wasn't a lot. It wasn't something that could sustain me for, it was really little. And for me to make a living, I would have to get a full-time job at the same time maintain the contract, which, it's tough. You have to travel. You're putting a lot of time and energy in training. And WCAP was there, and they were recruiting for 2020 Olympics and 2024. And I met the standards, and I said, this really checks all my boxes. I can serve this country, continue to run maybe 4-6 more years. And that's how I ended up joining. And also, WCAP was really like part of our family. And when Shadrack said he was leaving, I said, somebody needs to still be, the family. And that's how I ended up joining.
You talked a little bit about contracts.
Yes.
When you were starting to look into that as a way to get support, were there different standards for men and women when it came to what they offered?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I didn't come to that realization until I graduated college. When I was in college, the highest I placed was 4th in the 10K. And to me, I'm probably innocent about this stuff, but I really thought I was good. And I thought I would get something out there. But come to learn later, it was very difficult for me to get the contract. Some men that probably were my level got something better. And for me also adding that I am a woman and an immigrant woman, that was not it wasn't favoring me in any way, because I remember talking to a lot of people and they were like, yeah, no, you either have to be number one in the NCAA, win the cross country or track in your event, or just that. And I wasn't, and it was a very hard reality for me. And that's why with the Army, there's no really a lot of, I don't know what's the right word to call it, like you make the standard, you get in. It doesn't matter if you're a man, a woman, black, whatever race, it doesn't matter. But out there, those variables really affect if you're gonna get a contract or not.
Though, speaking of sexism, you went in the Army in a mostly male unit. So even though the program had these objective standards, what were you dealing with in reality?
Yes, it's a very male-dominated field, and a lot of, I found myself sometimes, especially when you're dealing with women issues, like when somebody's pregnant or somebody's postpartum, then that's where I really saw the difference. If I was a man, maybe it would be different. But when I was in basic training, doing the training, there was no really, I never saw everybody, you are a trainee, you are a soldier out there. There was no difference. And I like that part, because you just meet the standard, you listen to the rules, you follow the rules, you're good. But then when you come to your job now with the big Army, then that's where I saw, especially when I was going through pregnancy and postpartum, it's just different. And I wish there were more females, especially in the leadership positions, because, you can tell me 12 men will be sitting there deciding on a policy, on a pregnancy policy. What they're going to say? I mean, they've never been through this. They don't know what they're talking about. If there was one or two females to really be a part of that policy, I think it would be different. It would be better.
What did the WPAC program with your pregnancy? How did that work? Did you continue to train? I know you weren't competing, but how did that work logistically?
Yeah, so for me, this was very interesting. First, they did not have a pregnancy policy of their own. We used the Big Army one. And the Big Army one was, they couldn't use it at some point because, running, if I am a marathoner, I have to run 40 kilometers. And WCAP requires me to do that, let's say on every other Sunday. But the Big Army says you can't run more than 2 miles when you are pregnant. So there was a lot of clash until they just left me alone. They said, you know what, you do your thing, because we don't even know what we will come up with a pregnancy policy. And then they did come up with a pregnancy policy later, after I was done, and now they're using it for the other females. I don't know how it looks now, but what I remember was, if you don't, it's tough because, WCAP is a performance-based program. You have yearly benchmarks. So let's say for me, my benchmark was to make the Olympic trials and go on to make the Olympic team. You are 9 months, you are going to go through pregnancy for 9 months, and then another maybe, depends on the person. Some people bounce back quick, but it would take like a year and a half, maybe 2 to come back. So because of all these benchmarks, for sure that you will not meet them, and then that means you'll be cut from the program. And that's just the sad part of it. I don't know how they will be able to balance it in the future, because it's almost like you have to decide between the two. You either have a family or you stop running. In the future generations, it will take, I don't know, I hope they really look at it and see how women can have both, because I see other brands or the sponsorships, they're really trying to help their women, and they're telling them, you can have both. And with the Army, especially with WCAP, I don't know if you can have both.
Both elite athletics and fertility have a clock on them.
Right.
So how can the programs balance that? I mean, we've been seeing it with other sponsors as well, saying what happens when you go on maternity leave and you no longer have a ranking.
Right. And it's very tough. It's very tough for us women. You think and at the end of the day, some of us, we choose family, and then running will come later. Sports will come later. If it does, if it doesn't, then it's just a sad reality.
One of the things in the book that Joanna and you talked about was being a pioneer in this program because you're a woman and there's not that many women in the unit. What is that like to be among the first to go through something and deal and A, have to deal with how hard it is, and B, try to make it better for the next generation to come along?
Yeah. For me, it's an honor in a way, and I knew this getting into the program because there were no females in the long distance platoon, and I knew that, and I knew up against so many things, and I just wanted to be there and show other women that yes, because somebody has to start it, right? Somebody has to, because most of the time there were only males only men in the group. And when I joined, we got Edna Kurgat. She's a very phenomenal runner. She did join, and she keeps telling me she joined because I was there. If I wasn't there, she would not have come. And now we have another girl, Colette Ram. She was just from another unit, and she's also a great runner. And now we are 3 of us now, and who knows, maybe this next squad there will be more females. And for me, that's what I want to see. I want to see more females, not just in the program, also in the leadership positions. If we'll have a coach, a female coach, or even like a commander, that would really shake up things and really lead us in a progressive way.
How did you meet Samantha Schultz through all of this?
So Samantha was in the program, but she was doing pentathlon. So it's like 5 events. And for me, I didn't know so much about the events, and I got to learn so much about the sport from Samantha. And she was this amazing. Every time we went to formations and they just call her in front, they're giving her all kinds of awards. And I'm like, I want to be like her. Like, she was just amazing. She's going to Olympics. She's doing her thing. But I could tell it was very tough for her because, I only do 1 event and it's already hard. She's doing 5 and she's making the Olympic team, and she's a female. And I looked up to her so much. I still do. And we got to bond a little bit more especially when we would go on trials, and she'll be there and she's doing her running, and I'll give us, my little running advice, because I think running comes like towards the end of her sport. So she'll be like, oh man, I got 1 more. What do you have for me? And, we'll talk a little bit. And sometimes off season, she would do like a road race with me. So that was really, really amazing. And we didn't get to talk a lot about our private lives, what's going on. And I wish we did, because, clearly after the book, when we started writing the book, then I learned so much more about her. And I wish I was there for her, even just be a listening ear, just support her in that way. But in WCAP, we never really talked about our personal lives. Just hi, how is because also the pressure is so high. We are only just looking at performance. We are so tunnel focused. Like, we are not looking at anything else. We forget. And that's one thing I've learned. Like, we need to look out for each other more, not just how you doing in running and your sport, because it what you do out there, what you're carrying with you is so much more than just performance. And I wish I was there for her, especially like when I was there for my college teammates going through eating disorders. And even though I don't know much about it, I just be there, and I think that's the best support I can give. Just be there, listen, and be available when they need me.
Well, she had her physical struggles. You had your physical struggles with pregnancy as well.
I did.
So talk a little bit about trying to come back after, you grow a whole other person.
Right? Yeah. You go from this tiny person to like a whole different person. And for me, of course, it was my first pregnancy, so I had never experienced anything like that. And being in this, I really think if I was in Kenya, I was pregnant in Kenya, I would not have looked at myself in any different way. I would not even notice anything. But here I was self-conscious about how I look. And I remember, I didn't write this in the book, but just the little stuff. Like I remember putting on my uniform to go to formation. And I would ask my husband several times, how do I look? How do I look? And at some point he said, you know what? You have to stop this because it doesn't matter. You are pregnant. That's it. That's end of story. You're not, stop asking me if you are big or whatever. You stop. And Shadrack is very good at it, at shutting me down and bringing me back to my place, Because I was worried, like, oh, how am I going to look in a formation where everybody's so skinny? And I was very self-conscious in that way. I mean, I look back now, I'm like, what was I doing that? But at that moment, you just get so sucked in and you're just you're so looking microscopic. You're not even looking at the big picture. You're going to have a beautiful baby and all that. And you're going to get time to come back. But then after the baby now trying to come back was a very big struggle for me. Because first I gained 40 pounds. And trying to get back, I have the standard, remember? I have the standard, the benchmark to meet. I was supposed to make the world championship team in July. And I had my baby the year before in April. But it wasn't enough time. And I had some complication, trying to go through the rehab, trying to get myself back. And then now, start building up, start running. I didn't start running for I think it took me 7 months to really start running. And I started walking and then started running. It was the most difficult thing I have ever done. Because first, your body, I am eating a lot because I was breastfeeding. I mean, we are ladies. I can talk about breast milk. Nobody tells you breastfeeding is so hard. It is. It takes a toll on you. And producing 8 ounces every 4 hours or every 3 hours, it took a toll on me. And I loved that journey with my son. We bonded over that. It was the best gift I would ever give to him. And I love that. I would never regret. I will do it over and over again if I have to. But also, there's this other side that it's taking so much from you. You're trying to get back to the running weight and it's not happening. There's a lot of frustrations. And then it's just, you have also issues, because you go from being 90 pounds to 128 pounds, and then your knees, your hips, your ankles, everything starts hurting. And you can't train at the level that you want to train at because of all these issues. But for me, I don't know, at some point it all just came together and I was able to race the Army 10 miler, and it gave me so much confidence that, because at some point I thought I don't have it. I can't do it. It's just not possible. But I was happy that they gave me another chance. They said, okay, you didn't make the world championship team. Can you do... I requested for them to do the marathon. I said, if I qualify for the marathon trials, would you guys give me a chance? And it took them back and forth. And then finally they said, okay, we'll give you one chance. One chance. If you blow it up, that's it. You can imagine having one chance and you don't have anything else and you want to run the Olympic trials. You want to give this a chance. You really believe inside that you got it. It's just that the body is not, at that moment, it's not responding the way you want. But I'm happy that it all came together with Shadrack's help, and I had a whole... They say it takes a village, right? I had the whole village. My village was rallying behind me, from Joanna to Shadrack to other teammates, that they can't even mention their names. My church, everybody. I told everybody, I have to make it, y'all. If I don't make it, then I don't know. And they're like, we do have to make it. So I felt like I had all that support behind me, and that's how we did it.
When you were in college, you ran 5,000, 10,000, then you moved up to 10, and then moving up from a 10 miler to a marathon, that's a big difference.
Very big.
In distance. And when you're trying to get your body back. Was that a spur of the moment? Well, I can run the marathon. How about that?
Yeah.
Or did you put more thought into it?
I did not even, so I knew after the baby I was going to do marathons, but not within 2 months you're going to transition, not like that. But it's because of the circumstances for me to still stay in the program, and to, staying in the program meant for me to stay in Colorado and also still take care of my son. And also get to the Olympic trials, because I know they were not going to give me a chance to get to 2028 Olympics to train for the next squad. At some point, I got some orders to go to Germany. And I said, okay, it's either Germany or run the marathon. Guess what I chose? I chose the marathon.
Did you have any issues postpartum with feeling like your joints, not just from the weight, but just the change in your joints, from pregnancy?
Oh yeah. I at some point I thought they're just gonna rip off, especially my knees. My knees couldn't take it. My ankles, the hips, we can't even talk about the hips. Everything was a mess. Like your body goes through all these changes. Of course you are carrying a human, and that in itself is just out of this world. And then now your body is trying to come back to its normal self, because the joints probably open up for more room, and then now you're trying to get them back, and not just get them back in their natural time, you're forcing them to come back as quick as possible. So that, I felt a lot of change in my physical body for sure.
How tough was that U.S. Marathon trials for you?
Super tough, very tough. I underestimated how tough it was going to be, but also such an amazing experience for me, because that was one of my goals. I didn't know that I thought, I would do the 2028 Olympic trials, but now that it came so fast like that, I was so excited. I was super, super excited to be there. And also with Shadrack, he went to 2016 Olympics, but I wasn't even a U.S. citizen back then. And then 2020, he was injured and I didn't make the team. So this, for us as a family, was a big deal. But I wouldn't underestimate how tough it was, because it was hot. It got hotter and hotter as we got through the day. And then the loop, I like the first loop. The second loop, not so much. The third one, I don't even know how I survived. Yeah, it was very tough. And you could see how other people were also feeling, because we had a lot of people drop from the race. The people that we expected to win were not even close. So that shows you it was very tough. And also on Shadrack's end, he told me it was very tough, because the man just kept cranking the pace, and it was very tough. And we should expect so. Olympic trials, when you make the team, you earn it by all means. It's not easy. And that's why we do it. That's why we do it, so those three can really show they're the best of the best on that day.
So I think it was an Instagram post of Joanna, the author, watching your son during the trials.
Yes.
So doing this book, she really became a part of the family.
Yes, and I tell her, like, if everything falls apart, it doesn't matter. For me, the friendship, the family ties that we built is so much, much more important than anything else. It's so paramount to me. So Joanna, you won't believe it. She's done so much for me and for us. Shadrack was in Kenya a couple of times. She would come watch Milo for me so I can go to training, because sometimes I didn't have somebody to watch Milo when I'm doing my crazy 40-kilometer Sundays. And she would come down and really help me with that. And one time I was in Army 10 Mile, and she did show up for me. She came in with her husband, and also for the Olympic trials, she came for. And that's one of the reasons I finished the race, because I knew Joanna and Milo, my son, are at the finish line. There's no way I can finish this race, because if I don't, who knows when the bus is coming to get me. So I better finish this. Let's walk it, walk to the finish line. Yeah. So she's such an incredible human. I am so appreciative of Joanna. She's been so much more than, she's just amazing. And I appreciate her every day. She knows that.
So what does running look like for you going forward?
Going forward, even though the Olympic trials marathon broke my heart, I love it. I love the marathon because you should look at my training before the Olympic trials. My coach was like, this is it. You are great. You're going to be so great in the marathon. And I was I look beyond the Olympic trial. I say, you know what? Yeah, I made some mistakes. I ran too fast the first half, and it was my first one, so it's okay. But I have so much hope for the marathon, and that's, I think, going forward for me. I'm looking at doing a full marathon later this year, and yeah, hopefully my biggest race to get to is Boston. I would love one day to be in Boston. That would just, yeah, that would be amazing. So yeah, maybe next year, who knows.
And what about with the Army?
So with the Army, now that I didn't meet my benchmarks, I got released from the program. So I am, it's called ETS. It's the end of contract is coming up for me, 6 years in November. So I'm not going to be in WCAP anymore, but I am looking into staying in the Army in the reserves or the National Guard. I don't know if you guys know that. Yeah, you are not active duty. You're just there just in case they need you. You go back. Because I still want to serve in a different way. And I'm going back to school this August. And that's what I'm looking into, maybe come back in another capacity, serve in another capacity. Maybe not running, but something else.
I know Shadrack is retired from the Army, but do you outrank him yet?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. He always says, if I stayed in the Army, I would be a staff sergeant now. I said, but you're not. So he was.
I expect him to salute you every time you come home.
Oh yeah, if I go to my school and come back, I'll be an officer, and yeah, you will have to salute me. Oh, that would be fun to see. I'll make him do that just for fun.
Anything else, Allison?
Do you love a good drink with ice yet? Have you been here long enough to
Just thinking about
appreciate
it,
the
yes,
ice?
I have my ice all the time. You see, now I'm real American now.
That's what did it. Once you took the ice, then you knew.
Yeah.
Is there anything we missed that you want to make sure we talk about?
Yeah, just tell people to go read the book. There's so many things in there, the good stuff, and there's also some hard stuff in there. And for me, the reason I brought up the hard stuff, like immigration and racism and, other things, eating disorder, is so that people can begin to have a conversation. Change always starts with conversations. And I hope it does that for people to just we start talking among ourselves, and also issues affecting women, we start by talking amongst ourselves.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much,
Thank you
Elvin.
so much, Elvin. It was so good to meet you.
Yeah,
because we feel, we read the book, so it's like, I know her, but I don't. But now we do.
Now you see the face, you see, you get it. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Jill and Allison, for this opportunity. For me, I didn't know I could share my story this way. And now that we are here, it's really a dream come true for me. And I appreciate you for giving me this platform.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Elvin. You can follow Elvin on Instagram at Elvin J. Kibet and Facebook. She is Elvin Kibet. The book is at our bookshop.org site. We will have a link to that in the show notes. You know what else we have a link to in the show notes?
Voting, because it's not just for November anymore.
That's right. We are nominated for a Women in Podcasting Award. The deadline for votes is October 1st, 2024 at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern time. And basically, this is a podcast with the most votes, and the category will win. So we really need your help in making sure that we hit the top of the ballot in the Best Sports Podcast Award. So voters must be 18 or over. Only one vote per email address. So we appreciate everybody who's voted so far. And yes, if you haven't voted yet, please do. Bonjour. Bonjour. We, of course, will still have much Paris 2024 information as they wind down operations with the organization. The International Testing Agency has finished its Games Time doping testing. So it collected 6,130 samples from 4,150 athletes, which is nearly 39% of all participants. That may not sound high, but it's their highest proportion ever. 4% more than Tokyo, 10% more than they had in Rio. More testing's done on the larger delegations. So USA, France, China, and Australia had the most tested athletes, but they did test athletes from 200 countries and 97% of the nationalities represented. The top 5 sports, if you are curious about who gets tested more: athletics, aquatics, cycling, rowing, and wrestling were top 5. And men were tested more than women. You know, we talked about gender parity at these games a lot, but men got tested more than women, 52% to 48%. They found 5 anti-doping violations, which is surprising that that's it.
That's a very low number. And we had no medals overturned.
No, these were all pretty lower in the rankings athletes. And I'm not sure if we talked about this ahead of time, but they did have a massive pre-games testing program for 6 months ahead of Paris. They tested 90% of all participating athletes at least once during this time. That's where they found them. They found over 40 anti-doping rule violations in athletes who were likely going to be at Paris 2024. So that may have changed the game. So the ITA is going to store all games time samples and selected pre-game samples for up to 10 years, and they will reanalyze them if new technology develops. So not bad so far for doping.
Doesn't it make you nervous when it's so good?
Sadly, it does. But, not many Russians were there, and they had a big doping program, as because Paris did have all of those medal reallocation ceremonies. So it's nice to know, hopefully, knock on wood, that the incidences of doping have gone down. What's also going down? This is sad. This is very sad.
I came across a post by one of our fencers, Nick Itkin, who was showing the state of his bronze medal. And it looked like it had gone through a washing machine. I mean, it looked like the finish had really worn off. And then I started looking into it. Turns out there is a problem with the bronze medal. Nyjah Houston posted about it, and some other athletes have talked about the state of these bronze medals. So it seems to be a thing. It's been reported in The Guardian. We have an article from the National Post that I'm going to quote in a second. So it seems to be that the coating that was used is chipping and wearing off, and not just the bronze patina that can happen, but it's actually your bronze medal is not holding up. Good news, though, and I'm going to put a quote from the IOC spokesperson, according to the BBC: damaged medals will be systematically replaced by the Monnaie de Paris and engraved in an identical way to the originals. So the Paris Mint will replace these damaged medals with identical medals.
That is frustrating. And what do you do? Do you turn that in? Because how many more pieces of the Eiffel Tower do they have left over?
Well, I think they'll probably just reuse.
Okay.
Take your
take your old one.
Right. You could recycle your piece of the Eiffel Tower. But then you have the issue of this isn't the medal I was awarded.
Mm-hmm. If people are attached to that element, yes.
But they look bad. I mean, they look bad.
Yeah, it looks like they've had them for years. And even, they're so worn and beaten up in 2 months. I would expect that from Rio. I don't expect that from Paris.
Right. We had this issue with Rio, but that was with all of the medals. This seems to be specifically with the alloy that was mixed for the bronze medals.
Interesting. That's unfortunate for those athletes. Also unfortunate for Paris to have that kind of black mark on that production piece, because they were so proud of the medals and they looked so good at the time.
I'm just getting back to my Duolingo Italian, so I don't really have anything for you, but I will say we are less than 500 days away.
Oh, I cannot believe that. We will be hearing the Milan-Cortina theme a lot more often now, which is very exciting, but very scary. Yesterday I finished the application for accreditation, so we will hear about that in a few months. But that is also a little daunting to think about, and to hopefully, knock on wood, we will be able to go again and be accredited for both the Olympics and Paralympics and bring our special brand of coverage to you. Hopefully this time without toilets. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves, really.
I mean, we were talking earlier, this is going to be, if you are thinking of going, start thinking because this is a true regional games and getting between the clusters is going to be time intensive.
Right. So we will keep our eyes open for how transportation is going to be, how each cluster is going to be, and it will definitely be a games to plan for. It's going to be a stunning backdrop. They do have the mountains, so much like Paris had the city of Paris, Italy's got some gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous mountains. So hopefully, being at the games will be an Olympic and Paralympic celebration versus I'm going to go see one sport like I could do on a regular year. We'll see how that works. We'll also see how volunteer recruitment is going to work because that portal is now open. The organizing committee is aiming to recruit about 18,000 volunteers, which they are calling Team 26. The application is open on its website, Milan-Cortina2026.org. Requirements are that you have to be 18 years old by November 1st, 2025. You have to know Italian and English and participate in selection and training events. You will have to commit to at least 9 non-consecutive days during the games. Volunteer positions do not include travel, visas, or accommodations, so you will have to pay for all of that on your own. No deadline is stated on the application, but get it done because the timeline says selection happens in spring 2025. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. I think 18,000 is low.
I was thinking that as well. So I'm glad you said that. It does feel small, or maybe it's because of the clustering. You don't need, but in that way, you would need more.
That's what I would think. You would need more because you still, if you're saying 9 days per, at least 9 days, unless volunteers will work more, you still have an Olympics that is, 17 days long? And a Paralympics that is 10-ish? So I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe
serve a lot of cappuccino.
Or maybe they've just looked around and seen there are too many volunteers at some places. We can make do with less. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
But you will probably get a really cool uniform.
Yes, they're already touting these uniforms. We don't know what they look like, but they are going to be choice.
Do you think Armani is, because Armani does the Italian Olympic team uniforms for years? Do you think they'll do? Do you think they'll do the volunteers? Oh, and you'd get one of those suitcases.
Wouldn't that be nice? Keep an eye out.
I'm not doing the show. I'm going to go volunteer. I want one of those suitcases.
Get to your Duolingo, man, because you really have to know Italian more than ciao.
Salve. That's what I learned last night.
Olympics.com has also had an interview with the CEO, Andrea Varnier, where we will get to know this person very well, much like Tony Estanguet. He has said that they are thinking of doing interactive events like the Paris Marathon Porto, which he did say would be difficult to replicate for winter. But there is a possibility of maybe a cross-country ski marathon. He did call that out, but he did also note they are exploring the idea of letting people use the courses after the competitions to get that interactive element again. But again, exploring. Not a done deal, but I think they really got caught up in how interactive Paris was for spectators and want to do that because they do have a lot of momentum to carry because Paris did such a good job with spectator engagement and planning events for spectators. So,
and the hard thing is that summer sports by their nature are more interactive than winter sports. Yes, hockey and figure skating and things that are in the ice arena, you can but you can't replace being outside at an enormous athletic stadium or in swimming or being able to be outside at a rugby match in winter sports. I mean, a lot of it's on an alpine mountain and you're standing at the finish line. It doesn't have that same engagement potential just because of the nature of the sport. And it's cold.
That's the one thing is weather conditions that they have to deal with. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I hope that they're able to do at least some sort of the you try it things that they had at all over the venues at Paris. Easy to do with curling. Probably easy to do with setting up a hockey net and a puck.
I mean, even easy to do with some of the skiing things because they have those machines.
Oh,
That you
right,
can
right.
do sort of, and then do the virtual screens.
Right, right.
I mean, you can do a cross country machine pretty easily, at least the setup.
We'll see. We'll see how that works.
So many ways for me to get hurt. Welcome to TKFLASTAN.
Now is a point of the show where we check in with our team Keep the Flame Alive. These are past guests and listeners who make up our citizenship of TKFLASTAN. They're still busy.
They are still competing at the UCI World Championships in Zurich. Samantha Bosco won silver in the WC4 time trial, and Dennis Connors won bronze in the MT2 time trial.
Sprinter Kenny Bednarek won the 200 meters at the Diamond League final in Brussels. Hockey surface expert Paul Campice is starting a new position as GM Polytan APAC at Polytan Asia Pacific.
And we have some new citizens of TKFLASTAN. Keegan Randall gave birth to a daughter, Aspen Lewis, in July. And Jason Tournament and his wife Jillian are expecting a baby boy this winter.
Yay! And that is going to do it for this episode. Let us know if you've read All in Stride and tell us what you think of it.
And we love hearing from you. You'll find us and other listeners on our Facebook group, Keep the Flame Alive Podcast. You can also email us at flamealivepod@gmail.com. And the voicemail and text line is always open, 208-352-6348. That's 208-FLAME-IT. Be sure to look in the episode show notes for how to get our weekly newsletter and follow us on social to get all our content.
Next week, we will be back with more stories and news from the Olympics and Paralympics. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, keep the flame alive.